Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the On the Contrary podcast with Emilio Tobias. If there is still anyone listening, you would have noticed I haven't posted in about a week and a half. I have like kind of a special episode today. I got my first guest, Mr. Carvin H Goldstone. Funny, this whole week I caught myself trying to think of all the celebrities with H as a middle name.
No.
Like William H. Macy.
Are there a few?
Thought of Triple H, but I don't know if that counts.
Okay, so a little bit of confusion, yeah. My second name is not H.
Because we have a gag about it, and I've been meaning to ask you.
My name is Carvin H. I'm going to show you my ID quickly. So that's my ID. So my first name is Carvin H.
Where's your name here? So your name is Carvin H.
That's my name, yeah. So that's my actual... That's my birth name.
And then what did your father say?
Huh?
What did your father say about it? I assume it was your father.
Nah, they just felt that Carvin was like too alone. As if Carvin's a strange name already.
Yeah, like a lot of colored names. Like I have a friend, the name's L'Oreal, right? It sounds like such a colored name, but I've never heard that name anywhere else until she said, "You've never heard that name before," because my parents made the name up.
L'Oreal, but it sounds like it fits in the community. It sounds like she got a library card at Aldo's library. Does Aldo's have a library?
Yeah, there's a few.
Okay.
There's a few.
Because we had a library, I think they closed it in Newlands. So
yeah, but nothing happens there. I think the government just funds this thing to pay those 3 people that work there.
But they're actually like quite helpful. I went to Pietermaritzburg. Pietermaritzburg got quite a few communities, colored communities, and they've got I think it's Eastwood. They've got a beautiful library. Like you can do shows and everything. They got like a venue. They got like modern building design, exposed brick, concrete floors, shiny concrete floors, and books.
Sounds like the worst place to do comedy.
Yeah, they actually, when I went in, they said, hey, we've got a room here. You can do stuff. And I went in and they got this room set up for like poetry and stuff. Yeah, very nice. A library, very nice. And like a lot of cultural little pieces. So like little stands with stories about like a topic, let's say dinosaurs. You know how they do those theme weeks.
Yeah.
But like attention to
Shark
detail.
Week, Dinosaur Week.
Yeah, but in a library.
Astrology Week. So your father invented the name.
My father, yeah.
And wasn't he didn't put H by mistake on the form.
No, they thought about it. I've asked him many times what was their thinking. And so the first name is from the singers, the Winans. So BB Winans and CC Winans are the popular, like, generally people have heard those names.
Fix it with a prayer, fix it with $1.
Okay, I'm not that into it. But what a lot of people don't know is that they're actually like the younger siblings of the Winans brothers who got famous first before them. So the family is massive. So the Winans brothers was
same like the Wayans brothers.
Yeah, so weird, right? That they got similar names and they're a family of entertainers. They had Marvin, Michael. One was Marvin, Michael, and I forgot the other one's name. So that is technically, or more accurately, where my name comes from. But my father's also a huge Marvin Gaye fan, like the biggest.
Marvin Carvin.
Marvin died in May when I was born, like a few days before I was born. I'm pretty sure that I had an influence. I was going to be named Obadiah.
Is that a Bible name?
It's a prophet, a minor prophet. So
I know Obed is in the Bible.
Yeah.
Obed
Plaikis. No, Obadiah. Obed's also in the Bible, but Obadiah is another character.
Else.
Yeah. Shucks.
Do you think Obed was named after Obadiah?
I think Obed was named after Obed. I think there's an Obed and an Obadiah.
No, but I mean Obed in the Bible himself.
Oh.
His parents heard the name Obadiah. It was too much. They didn't know how to spell it.
The iron part. What's that about? Where's your name from?
I was named after Emilio Tobias.
Oh, is it?
Child, I wanted to do a sit on, like, I was so disappointed that they named me after that brother.
Mighty Ducks.
Emilio Tobias, I don't know, was in. Yeah, I think he was in there. I don't even know him. That's the thing.
He was the coach in Mighty Ducks.
He was in Breakfast Club also.
I used to like him actually.
So my thing was, like, they named me after the least famous brother. Like,
no, but Emilio Tobias used
to be the thing.
He was famous at one point. But how old are you?
I'm 26 now.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I'm like...
Then up until Charlie Sheen started with his nonsense, and I was like, actually, they named me after the right brother.
Yeah. Are they brothers, Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
Are they both Douglas's children? No?
Martin Sheen.
Sorry.
And I think Sheen is the stage surname. I think the actual surname is Estevez.
Is it?
I could be wrong.
Oh, Estevez could be he said it wants nothing to do with his father. He used to actually be
like Angelina
he's
Jolie.
The coach. He's the coach in Mighty Ducks, dog. If you watch Mighty Ducks.
No.
Dog.
But I've seen.
You need to watch.
I've seen posters.
You need to watch Mighty Ducks. You have to. You know, when we had the comedy conference, Jason Goliath dropped a reference.
A Mighty Ducks
reference that was absolutely amazing. I'm not sure if everyone caught it, but obviously, I'm 34, so I would have been right in Mighty Ducks territory as a kid. And the reference was we were talking about comedy and how sometimes I suppose it applies to all fields where when things are not going well, it's easy to group together with the people that it's not going well for.
Okay.
And then like complain like, oh, you know, they're not giving us opportunities, blah blah.
and you're like empowering each other there in that group of.
And then he says, Jason says, you guys forming these little circles of death. This is not the Mighty Ducks where the bad team eventually comes good. That was so funny.
Like I think me personally, I have a good idea of where I stand and where I am in my career.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone has to be the best comedian in the world.
But
I know
everyone thinks they are too.
I know my journey. I know I'm not there yet. So what I try not to do is like, if I get like snooped or I don't get an opportunity, I try not to group myself with the others. Like, don't come here and sympathize with me as if we're in the same circle.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous, bro.
As if we are not getting booked for the same reasons.
I am funny. I don't know what's your reason for not being booked, but I was busy. They saw my schedule and they saw. So
I'm just full of myself.
No, I agree with you, bro. I think like I gotta, and it's not a popular view, but one of my things I always say is like comedy is not a team sport. What I mean by that is when it actually comes down to it, you will be left alone to fend for yourself. Like end of the month, we don't club together to help any comic make it through the month. Yeah. It's on your own.
And Calvin didn't make it this month. Does anyone have?
No one cares. No one cares if you couldn't afford.
It's life.
Yeah, it's life. And I think sometimes we hang out with each other so much that we kind of start thinking that we owe each other stuff. You owe me an opportunity, and look, and that's a personal thing, right? Yeah. With anything, like if I create an opportunity or make or offer something, that is really a personal choice. It's not an obligation, I don't think, at least, to those around you. And individuals, based on whatever your upbringing, your worldview, you'll decide whether you want to, how much you're going to extend of yourself to others.
I find it like, I don't know if I'm staying on topic, but I find that like I antagonize myself equally no matter who.
You antagonize yourself?
Yeah.
You have to take me into your mind.
There's a basis of this whole podcast. Like I have unpopular opinions.
Yeah.
So I tend to, I don't know, treat people fairly.
Sure.
So in that, like, you know, sometimes you get shocked. Like you're chilling with these people every day and you don't realize how bad things are for them.
Yeah.
Like, comedians one by one will like do like a whole long Facebook post. Like I don't know the point of the post, but they'll tell you stuff like, hey, 6 months ago, I was an addict. I was doing drugs.
Yeah.
I was doing this. Like I knew you 6 months ago. I had no idea
that
you were going through this thing. And like now you have a one-man show and like,
yeah.
We're happy for you. Now you've been like I'm happy to see things like that because it's like it's another opportunity to show like cool, we all go through depression, we're all down sometimes, we all have these moments, but like It's hard to tell when we all hang out at night and having beers. Like, hey man, things are rough for this person at the moment.
A lot of it's masked too because we don't want to seem vulnerable.
Yeah.
Especially amongst your peers, you want to be on top of things. How's things going? Yeah, it's going good.
Dope, man. I'm working
I'm hustling, I'm working on. No one says, and also you don't want to be like a whiner. How's things? Hey, it's bad, eh?
Yeah.
I couldn't pay the rent. Yeah, I haven't had a paying gig.
I know a guy who whined himself out of the situation.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, this guy again. So what we all do is we act. I got this theory that none of us are actually who we are. So like who Emilio is right now talking to Carvin and who Carvin is talking to Emilio is a certain character that I think Emilio wants to interact with, and Emilio is being the character that he thinks Carvin wants to interact with. But who you truly are, or who you even are now when you go to your auntie's house, is going to be a slightly different person based on the circumstances. And our life is a series of these little characters, right, that we keep playing. And so we get depressed because I think, and especially in our business, we get depressed because it's almost like a sign, your body or your mind telling your body or your body telling your mind that you're now tired now of this character now. Because this character is...
I heard
someone was talking about it. That you just finished with this character and you just... And I completely understand it because you think of how we grow up in our communities. You need to be a nice kid. So respectful of the child. Ooh, you go to your auntie's house, you wash dishes. Your mother doesn't even wash dishes at home, and he's washing dishes by yours because you're playing these characters, these roles of what you think. And as you become an adult and you kind of now can stand on your own feet, you get tired of those characters.
Yeah, and this is like what you've been building your whole existence on, and you realize it's nothing, or it's a waste of time.
Yeah, or it's not for you, it's for others.
Yeah.
And so you want to live for yourself, right? And the thing is, a lot of us, if we had to actually be our true selves, we'd be not nice people. But this is what this podcast is about in some sense. Just like being your unedited self.
Yeah. How self-aware do you think you are?
So for me, it's been a journey of self-awareness. I never thought of myself. I never thought of myself. But now,
just being.
I was just being, yeah. But I've become very self-aware, and I'll tell you what. It's got a lot to do with political consciousness about who you think you are, and who you are in the perception of the world, right? So, for example, we talk a lot about male privilege and white privilege now. These are conversations that are happening. This is the era of those conversations. As kids growing up, those two conversations were not really happening. We didn't even know. We just knew that white people were richer and men were better at jobs.
What I find,
and
like people always make like the generation they're in are discovering new injustices.
Yeah.
It's just, when you're watching old movies from like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you're like, these people are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They just don't have the jargon we're using.
Yeah. So you're quite right. The jargon is different. So for me, this is more of a personal thing, right? Those conversations were not like, we didn't really understand much about why we didn't have what we had and why those had. And so people would say, are you trying to be, especially if you like had a bike or had the full Mnet package.
Yeah.
Or you had
or just a decoder with Mnet.
Yeah. No, but no, not the one that goes, the one that like goes past. People would say, hey, they're acting like whites. It was like a thing where I grew up. Why are you acting like whites? Yeah. Because we thought that whites were just the way they are. We didn't think of them as like special sorts of circumstances that made them white or privileged. So as a man too. So I think understanding why myself, what I've achieved or what I've been able to do in light of my own privileges has been good for self-awareness, because you start realizing that your success is not actually down to your ingenuity and intelligence, but you were actually quite nicely positioned to take risks that others weren't. Yeah. So hey, Carvin, you did a show and a DVD quite early in your career. What made you do that? Like after like 3-4 years of doing comedy, and the risk of like booking a big room and doing all that. Well, you must understand, I'm privileged. My parents don't live in South Africa. My mother lives in England. So when they left their house that I stayed in. So I didn't have to pay rent. No, but like something as basic as rent, I didn't have to pay rent.
Yeah.
For the early parts of my adult life. So I bought a house and did a whole lot of other things because I didn't have the expenses that the average comic has to be alive.
Like it's one thing to admit that like cool, you have certain things with your parents. Yeah. And it's now a weird position to be in as a colored person or as a black person.
Yeah.
That you are now first generation. I have this because my parents were.
Because my parents like
isn't it like
things
such a weird position to be in?
Yeah.
Because the people around you don't yet understand it.
Yeah,
they know how to deal with you.
And also they like because we grew up in Newlands and we grew up in the like the hood part of Newlands. People just assume that
they're selling drugs at their house.
No, not people from the hood. People from outside just assume, you come from a tough area. They don't realize that there's dynamics in those areas too. Like we had rollerblades as children, my sister and I. Like rollerblades in the hood.
You know what was weird for me? Although we were the kids, my dad had a job. We were like the kids who had something.
Yeah.
We were the kids that never had toys.
Yeah.
And I even make a joke about it, like, my father didn't want to buy us
toys,
anything extra, bruh.
You played with stuff.
We played with other kids' toys, the poorer kids' toys.
Okay, sticks and guns with sticks.
Like, if I can tell you, bruh, like, I don't remember having toys.
Oh, bruh.
The first time I had a toy was in grade 6 when what's the name came out. Those remote control Mini Cooper and a PM that you could control with the watch.
Yeah.
That was like 300 rand.
Yeah, it was big.
I don't know how I convinced my father to get me that, but like my father never.
Yeah, well, I know how you told him I've never had a toy in my life. Surely.
Nah.
Surely now, Dad.
I had to be a bit more, what's this word?
You can make
subtle than that. Oh, bruh. Like,
because he would have said something to you like, what do you mean toys? How you been eating all these years? No. Where you been sleeping? Who pays your school fees? Who buys your Christmas clothes? Did you buy Christmas clothes when you were young?
Yeah, they used to buy.
You know what's crazy?
Winter clothes, Christmas clothes.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing about growing up in the hood. So I would say my father was a taxi driver. He used to drive Zolopad.
When it just came out.
He drove a high ace for a long time. And then he bought a taxi.
Okay.
And then he got shot in a hijacking.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Taxis and it's gonna happen. And then he got rid of the taxi. But like when we had that taxi, hey bruh, like there's a dude who come to the house every night with money. It's like the weirdest thing. His name was Bonami. He used to drive after my father stopped driving.
Oh, yeah.
And this dude would come with a whack of money every night. It's like the craziest thing. I was like, this is life. And then he sold a taxi. And I was like, why is he selling a taxi? I was supposed to be like 10 or 9. Why is his no, you can't have a taxi? Because he had to carry a gun and he was like a target and whatever.
Yeah. I was talking to someone about like the whole taxi thing. There's like such an honor amongst killers that if they come to kill you, they won't touch your family.
Yeah.
the one rule in the whole taxi industry, even to today.
Yeah, leave the
They come and kill you alone. They don't touch you.
No,
they'll tie your wife and children up where they come and kill you, but they don't touch them.
I watched a taxi boss get killed once in Newlands. I was first in the scene. When it happened, like we couldn't even tell that it happened. It happened so quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, have you ever seen a gunshot wound when it just happens?
No.
You actually can't even. It looked like moles on his face, and because the blood hasn't poured out yet. It's just happened, and then the blood starts coming, and you realize, no, it's not moles, it's holes. It's like bullet holes.
So it's like
clean.
It's still black inside.
Yeah,
that's why it looks like a mole.
It was clean. There's no blood or anything. 2 clean holes, and then they started pouring. And the guy looked at me so scary. The guy looked like I'm the last person he saw before he died.
Yeah. Yes.
And he got shot there.
That would traumatize me, bro.
Nah, you must know I was a journalist. I think just before that or after that time, I've seen a lot of dead people. In my 20s. My 20s, I spent a lot of time at crime scenes. I've been in scenes like, I remember once I was at work. It was like 11 o'clock. I used to work for the Saturday Independent or the Saturday Star in Johannesburg, or Week in August, same group paper. Like, and a guy phones me like, I'm supposed to leave. He says, there's a family that's been killed, a legal family, like they're all lawyers. I went to the scene like that time, like this whole family had been massacred. Yeah. Except the daughter and her husband, who are also lawyers and live on the property. It was so bizarre.
Sketchy.
And then it was like I got so involved in this case because now I was like, who? And then they found the one suspect. They believe the one suspect. Imagine all the suspects kind of were linked to the family in some sort of working capacity. One looked after their yacht. One worked in the garden. And I remember going to the house. I went and searched for the guy's house in Umlazi. I found the house where he was killed. The police killed him afterwards. And their story was that he tried to pull a gun when they found him. And then I went and spoke to neighbors. The neighbors said, nah, he never tried to pull nothing. They led him in and opened fire. They had him in custody.
Yeah, bro,
they took him in the house.
And then the conspiracies that.
Yeah, but you know, I was there. But then the second dude, they also caught the second dude, and they also shot the second dude. And the second dude's story was that he tried to pull a gun again, and he was killed. But he was
You
killed.
won't take me alive.
He was killed at the house. They took him back to the scene to walk through what he did, right? Apparently. And apparently he tried to run away, and they shot him. But he like, I remember looking at the pictures, and he was falling upstairs into the house as opposed to running away. So I was like, anyway. So I saw lots of killings.
So we were talking bizarre. About being self-aware. So you said your self-awareness stems from political consciousness.
So being politically aware of who I am. I think a lot of us are not aware of who we are and
in
how,
the world,
or
in society.
We just like we are here speaking English. Being aware of why that is. Why are we here speaking English, and the dynamics around your parents' upbringing and who they became, because we, like who we are, is very dependent on who our parents are. Like, we don't choose, like in South African context, our race, our language, or our community. Those are things that we are born into and don't have much control on for at least 15 to 20 years of our life. You can't really manipulate those things yourself.
Yeah,
you kind of dealt those cards, and you kind of work with those cards.
Navigate through those things and like find yourself.
Yeah, you can start to like manipulate them as you get older. But in the beginning, like the language, if you don't speak anything else besides English or Afrikaans or whatever language, that's down to the situation that you were born into. But you're not aware of that. You just think we speak English.
Everyone thinks,
and the others
like
they must speak English too. They must try. English is the main language. Or your religion, right? I'm a Christian, and we are in the right religion, and everyone else must get on board. What is up with them? And even the other types of Christians need to know that this is the real Christianity. Because you're not aware, you're not self-aware that you, or the type of Christian you are, or the type of Muslim you are, or Hindu, but particularly Christian, because we live in a Christianized sort of society, that is not necessarily the right thing.
Do you know what if there's a verse in the Bible that says, like, it says to Christians, like, this thing won't be for everyone. And I think the way people interpret that verse, and this is not a preaching or whatever, the way people interpret that verse is, this isn't for everyone, and everyone who it's not for are heathens or Satanists or whatever. But that's not, I don't think that's what it means at all. It just means if you need Christianity to be successful in life or to find fulfillment in life, it's for you. Other people will find fulfillment in other things. There's successful atheists,
well,
happier than you, doing better than you, objectively speaking. Yeah. And you can't now, there's no way for you now to justify that. How's it possible for atheists to do so well
when
in
I
life?
Believe the truth.
When I believe and I'm struggling. No, bruh. Christianity is for you, and that's what you believe. Atheism is for him, and it's what works for him.
The way I see it, right, I see them as ideologies, especially religions. So a particular ideology that
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, you've chosen to live by, right?
Yeah,
it's a lifestyle. So you've chosen to live by this particular ideology, and for me personally, those are simply things that you kind of were born into and chose, or at some point you chose. And they're not better ideologies necessarily than somebody else's. In fact, the religious ones are the more dangerous ones in terms of the exclusionary, because especially the Abrahamic ones. So the ones that come from the Middle East, which is Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, because they offer this exclusive access to God, they're a little bit more dangerous because they basically teach quite fundamentally that this is the way. And I don't think any of them are apologetic about that. The Jews believe they were the chosen people. Christians believe Jesus is the way, and Muslims believe that you must follow the Quran and believe in Allah. So I think the danger with those ones is that those ideologies, by very nature, even though they might not say it or might not want to be positioned this way, are essentially saying that we found the right way, and your best interest is to be closer to this way.
I get I heard Ben Shapiro say the other day, religion is a personal thing. So in terms, and he was talking about people being gay and Judaism and Christianity denouncing being gay and all of that stuff. And I was like, in my religious view, I believe it's wrong, but I have no problem with gay. I can be around.
But why do you think it's wrong? What makes you think? Because of your religion?
No, we're not talking. I'm not talking about that. But if Christianity believes it's a sin, that can be a whole separate thing from me being fine with interacting with a gay person.
Okay.
So if you were and I'm not saying being gay is like being a thief, but if my brother steals and he's a criminal who's been convicted, I'm not gonna throw him away. I still love him the same.
No, I don't think it's the same thing, Emilio.
I didn't mean to go into that. All I meant to say
we're
was
in the end game now.
We'll go into
this is a career-ending conversation you have just started.
All I meant to say was that people take the religion and they express it outwardly instead of internalizing it. So the whole thing of the Abrahamic religions that are so exclusive.
Yeah.
You must live it and you must totally believe in that thing. And it should be all about you.
But these things are open to interpretation,
it should have
right?
nothing to do with anyone else. They even say what's the thing? Those in glass houses man throw stones. Those types of things. Or the one with no sin, throw the first stone. That type of thing. That's what other people do with the same in the same religion as you and whatever. It's nothing to do with you. This thing is all about you and how you live your life.
Okay, so that's true in practice. It's what's happening, and it's also dangerous, and also in reality in practice, this is what's happening. Because so when the Reformation took place, right, and Martin Luther, in particular John Calvin, when they realized that the Catholic Church, which held the authority of the Scripture and the answers to everything, kind of for the people who are faithful, they felt that it was open for abuse, and it was being abused. And Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the wall of the door of the church with points basically on what should happen. And what they wanted was the scriptures to be open. There was a dude named William Tyndale who got the Bible printed because it wasn't allowed to be printed and distributed to ordinary people, because the arguments of the Universal Church or the Catholic Church at the time was that this book cannot just be read and interpreted by everyone, right? And then the
same like what's happening with the Quran. That's what happened with the Quran now.
To a large extent, these books, they're pretty ancient and they're pretty
sacred.
Well, I'm not so much sacred. They're pretty old in the way they're written. So it's very difficult to interpret an old text with a modern education because you're going to see things not in the context of the time they were written.
You're going to fill in your own gaps.
Yeah. Now, I went to Bible school for a bit where I learned quite a bit about situation in which stories were written. So they teach you something called exegesis and hermeneutics, where you learn to analyze the situation in which the story was written, which is very critical to understanding what was happening. And then the author's own situation, because I'll give you an example. In the book of Corinthians, or rather Paul writes to the church in Corinth. So Paul, who came after Jesus, wrote all these books. He writes like most of the New Testament, if you actually started crediting stuff to him, all the letters, right? He writes to this church in Corinth, which are called the Corinthians. He writes 2 letters to them. And in the one letter, he gives a quite clear description of how women should dress, right? In service. They should cover their heads so that there can be a separation, so that we know they're of the fold. Now, growing up in Newlands East, in church, Assemblies of God, women would cover their heads because this seemed clear on face value that that's what Paul was encouraging. But when I went into when anyone goes into the communication situation, when the situation when this letter was communicated, you find that at the time, so Paul had now been evangelizing, creating Christians and little churches. And these churches were made up of people from all walks of life, right? So that part of the world, that Mediterranean sort of area, a lot of pagan belief systems existed, a lot of mythology, and so there was a group of women who worshipped the goddess Diana, and so how they showed their allegiance or their worship for the goddess Diana was they would cut their hair, they would be bald-headed, and when they came into Christian fold, it became confusing because it wasn't clear whether they were still like following Diana or whether they were now following Christian. So the advice was that let them cover their heads, so almost like a sign that no, they're
I always thought the head covering thing was like a suppress your sexuality when you're around the fold, like
it became that though.
Don't distract. You're covering your hair because your hair is a major expression of your sexuality.
But that's what it became. That's what it became. It became a form of subjugation. It became a form of
oppression.
Yeah, definitely. Because men aren't required to cover their heads or to do strange things like that in church to prove their holiness.
At the same time, there's not much you can find sexy on a man.
Well, this is also about perception, right?
It's very, even like if you ask a woman.
I'm a kind of guy that finds men attractive, and I'm quite open about that. And I often discuss.
You find men. You're not attracted to men. You find men attractive.
Well, I'm not sure how much difference there is in that.
Big difference. It's a big difference. Like,
but I find
we
men
can
attractive.
all objectively tell, as much as you don't want to admit it. We can like all tell where we stand.
Yes. When you look in the mirror, you know yes or
Between
no.
me and this guy, I know what girls want.
No, but I like and although the women I've been with in my life have always been very aware of my my appreciation of men and women, but men more in particular because it's more maybe more surprising to some.
I have a trick that I do, man. So like obviously when you're driving, you'll see girls in the street, and you look, and sometimes you have to because it's obvious now, and you're already too far, and it's obvious that you're looking.
Yeah. So
what I do is I look at guys the same way, so it just seems like a natural thing that I do. So it doesn't just look like I look at women, but I'm looking at the guys for sure.
You get what I'm saying? For sure.
Yeah.
To say, also look.
I look at everyone. I'm not looking at her because she look like she had a nice ass. Yeah.
No. I'll see a dude and be like, yo, that dude's good looking. On my own, sitting by myself. Because also, and I know I don't have an issue with it because I don't think, maybe the way I was raised was different.
You don't have an issue with covering your head?
Yeah. No. So what I was saying there basically was back to that was the books that were written, right? the times and the situations with which they are written. You picking it up in 2019 can't have, unless you've made the efforts to kind of find out. The book is so old; it's very difficult to just pick it up and to pick up where they left off.
The head covering thing, so it's like uniform, so we can tell you are part of us and. Those people.
And those are also suggestions, like they're not absolutes. That's another thing, is to understand which commands in the Bible were absolutes and which were situational. So they apply to that particular people. But also in that particular
the danger in what you're saying is that, like, now if anyone and everyone can just decide which was situational and which was.
Well, that's what's happened, right?
So because that's how you try and stick to it as much as possible.
What's it though? The thing is, what's it?
That's why we have like 2,000 different denominations.
No, we don't. We have 40,000. So there's 40,000 different versions of Christianity.
You know what helped me understand Christianity a bit better? Game of Thrones.
I haven't watched it, so I'm not like saying, I haven't watched it.
No, I didn't judge you.
I just haven't watched it because I've been. It's one of those things I'm kind of gonna get to at some point. I just watched Knockos for the first time.
I started watching Knockos. I couldn't.
Do you stop?
Yeah.
Dude, I watched the whole thing.
It's difficult to get through it, man.
Is it? No ways. You know, like the idea of we grew up around drug dealers in Newlands and people who dealt in drugs, right?
Yeah.
And you don't actually ever think of how that works. And so it's
power. I like power. I enjoy power.
Yeah, I enjoy power too. But Knockos is different because we only at the end. Our communities are usually at the end of the process.
Yeah.
Mandrakes and buttons,
the most affected.
Cocaine, crack, and rock. Like we're at the end of that supply chain.
Yeah.
That show was amazing because it took you through from the growing of the coca leaf.
Yeah.
Which I think Durban is actually well placed to grow if that ever became legal. Because I think it's a similar climate to Bolivia and Peru and
Colombia.
And then taking you to the process and then how much it actually involves. Like making cocaine, I didn't realize making cocaine was so intense.
Oh, yeah, I saw like they soak the leaves and
it was crazy intense, and it's basically not every leaf is gonna give you, not all the whole bunch is gonna give you so much cocoa, and then they turn it and they mix it and they cut it and they make the paste, and so it was fascinating in that sense.
So sorry, basically Game of Thrones like kings and queens, basically.
Okay,
it's like a kingdom. People always fighting for.
I'm gonna watch it. Don't tell me too much.
So I'm just telling you, it's about kings and queens. Yeah. So that basic structure of. Would you show respect to what is your role in the kingdom?
Yeah.
What is the king and queen's role in the kingdom? So if you're living in that time and someone introduces now Christianity, because now everyone there is like, my Lord, your grace, all those things. So now when Jesus now comes along, now I understood now Jesus.
Is Jesus in the story then?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Just like if you take out now dragons and whatever, this.
Yeah.
And you think about back in that day when there were kings and queens.
Yeah.
And you're telling people, this king is no longer your Lord.
Yeah.
Your Lord is Jesus now. That's who will lead you. That's who will care for you. Because that's what a king would promise to people.
Yes.
Like, I know I overthrew the last king, but here's what I promise you. We couldn't stand by and whatever.
Yeah.
So now, instead of waiting for like regime changes or you voting every year, your only Lord is Jesus now. Screw whoever is in power of the land exactly. So it's like, what do you call it? It's like, is that world that helped me understood like the writing and what certain words mean. Some people think the word Lord means Jesus.
No.
Not at all.
No.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting that you're using the word Lord because the word Lord is quite, it's quite period. So, for example, we as the modern day Christians would have phrases like Jesus is Lord as like a standard thing, a declaration. People would put it on their churches and whatever the case is. But where does that come from? Jesus is Lord. So when Jesus arrived on the scene, and you kind of in the territory alluding to it, when Jesus arrives on the scene, in the Roman Empire, there's a coined phrase which is Caesar's Lord, right? And when I say coined, I mean in the actual coined sense. So it's actually coined. It's on a coin. Jesus is Lord, right? But it's a
Caesar now.
Yeah, Caesar's Lord. Sorry, and it's a thing. So the opposition to Caesar's lordship, the early Christians, they weren't called Christians or whatever they were called at the time, change it to they would have said Yeshua is Lord, or whatever Lord would have been in Aramaic or Hebrew or whatever at the time. So they directly,
so is that Jesus' name now?
Yeshua, yeah. So they directly took the name and made it apply in that situation. Yeshua is Lord, and so they would have called him. They would have said Jesus is Lord in response to people saying Caesar is Lord, because Caesar being Lord would have been a thing.
Yeah. That's strange, man.
Anyways, enough of this religion stuff.
Like leading nicely into what we meant to talk about, because I wanted to say, so you said political consciousness. I find that like my self-awareness is triggered by self-consciousness.
Yeah. Okay.
So
so there's levels to it, right?
Yeah. I'm always worried. So yours is like more outward. The explanation you just gave. Mine is like more inward, like, and it's like worrying about what people think of me and always making sure that I'm ready for whatever they bring. Because growing up in the hood, like, we're worrying each other all the time.
Yeah.
Like, whatever your weakness is,
we're gonna go for it.
Even if it's an actual disability,
we're nailing you.
We're going for it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's bad.
That just makes you like you're always on the watch now, making sure everything is fine, whatever. So what ended up happening?
That is true. I never thought of that. You're actually right. It does put you on a watch, making sure your shoes are clean or whatever. Because as soon as you walk in again,
don't wear nonsense. Don't wear.
It's a trap, right?
So we had like a short argument on Facebook the other day, and I'm happy the argument didn't go far because
we can talk about it now.
Yeah, because we can talk about it now. I was coming to Durban, and I was gonna bring my sound equipment to discuss this with Carvin. So there's this definition of racism going around, which I find myself disagreeing with, which roughly says that like black people cannot be racist because in order to be racist, you need to have the power to act on your racism and to influence someone else's life, which is the power that white people have over us, and their discrimination and their prejudice can greatly affect black people.
Yes.
And you said you used to believe in this until something.
Yeah. So on the surface, it does sound it makes sense. It does make sense as an expanded definition of racism to me. So, and again, in the American context, African American context, it makes even more sense, and that's where probably the idea was birthed. It was that people in America, African Americans, were disenfranchised because of their race by a predominantly white managed society. So economically, politically,
even
socially,
after slavery.
Yeah, after slavery, right? They were still subject to white people determining their future.
Yeah.
With not much recourse themselves to determining their future, or the reverse, being in now being able to determine the future of white people, right? So, and that's a numbers game too. It's about a majority social culture.
Yeah.
So you socially, black people become white because that's the dominant social culture. Speak different, dress different. Oh my gosh! And that's all down to the social influences of the dominant culture. Now, the reason why I adopted it because it makes sense as an expanded definition. The reason why I don't adopt it as a definition of racism, full stop, is because it's not a definition of racism, full stop, in any dictionary. So there's no dictionary that actually defines racism that way. Racism is really about one race believing they are superior to another race.
Yeah, that is my belief as well. Like, if you feel that another group of people is inferior to the group of people you associate yourself with, that is racism. Yes. And like the other version of it, people say tribalism, and for me that's just another word for racism, because it's one group of people believing that they're better than others.
Okay. So there's a difference there, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they all fall under the umbrella of prejudice, right?
Okay.
And this is part of the Muny explanation, is that you can be prejudiced but you can't be racist as a black person, because to be racist you have to have the power, so you can be prejudiced. So firstly, if we look at things like tribalism or prejudice between white people, Europeans, even in South Africa, between English speaking and
Polish
Afrikaans
people
speaking,
are the cheap labor.
Eastern Europeans, you'll find that we have different markers that we create that separate us as people. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, especially when it comes to race, these are purely social constructed lines.
Yeah.
So they're not real lines. They're things that we've decided are lines between us. Yeah. So, Emilio, you have brown skin. Carvin, you have dark skin. You and I and our society has the power to draw a line. Even though there's not much variation between our complexion, we have the power as a society, because our power is societal, to draw a line between us and say that you are now one group and you're another group. Yeah. We also have the power to not draw that line and to draw the line outside of us and to make us part of the same group. Now, that ability to draw those lines is what created races.
And it's a privilege there. But like, you know how I think,
like black, right?
How it came down to skin color. So like there's this whole thing, like, I don't know if to call it patriotism, but like you'll see now the English think they're better than the French, right?
Yes.
These are people who basically look the same. Nationalism. No, England is better than this place and this place. Then we discover a new continent.
Yeah.
Let's say it's Asia. So now the English and the French realize we look more like,
let's be together,
than those other people. So now we're gonna rather be together and hate those people together. Then we discover a new continent, South America and North America. All those people are slightly darker than us. Let us all stick together and fight those people. Because now the easiest difference to pick up between us, for example, for argument's sake, Chinese people, Asian people look different to European people. If I call out specific things, then I'm gonna sound racist. So now the easiest.
But that's the thing about race, right? Is that they call out those specific things to draw the lines. But I don't think it's that.
So now the easiest difference to tell, before they've met black people, the easiest difference to tell between people are now their facial features.
Yeah.
Then we find black people, and now because you need white people in order for there to be black people. If all of us are black, there's no black people. You need white people in order for there to be black people.
Yeah.
So now
we'll find new markers to divide us.
Yeah. So now
language.
So the first thing you see when you see a person, even probably before you see their gender, is the color of their skin. So now that becomes the easiest marker to make people different.
In a primitive society, maybe. But the problem with that is
racism is like a primitive
thing, yeah. The problem with that is that black people from history appears were interacting quite comfortably with European people.
Is that now the Mediterranean and that
across
that space there?
Yes. Or? So in the space, even in the Bible, if you read the Bible, there's clear interaction across groups, and in some ways it almost seems like there wasn't an issue. There's trade routes from India into Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Zanzibar, between Asia and Africa, that show that there was a mixing of cultures. There's Timbuktu and of course Egypt, which is like a center of of ancient civilization where black, Mediterranean, Arab people seem to be trading and interacting quite comfortably between each other. So I'm not sure if the color of the people is a like a for all time separator between groups, or if it's something that was constructed later on.
It's been solidified
over time. What I do know is that when the Europeans of the 1600s, 1700s arrived in Africa, especially where we were, yes, they did find an opportunity to exploit a more primitive group of people, being the Khoisan or the San people. They realized that they could take advantage of their less sophisticated understanding of warfare, of combat.
The further south you go, the less sophisticated.
Yeah, because there would have been less interaction over time with other cultures, because we grow from interaction with other cultures, right?
Yeah,
we learn a little bit from you, and then we kind of advance. And so when they came there, they found them with not a very, very sophisticated form of combat, and also a lot less threatened, it seems. So the people they encountered did not feel threatened by the arrival of other people in the same way that they would have felt if we arrived there, because they would have been in conflict constantly.
There's a weird conclusion my mind is trying to draw, but before it does that, when was North America like established by Columbus and all of that there?
I'm not exactly sure of the exact date, but I think it's 1600s.
1600s.
Yeah.
When did Jan van Riebeeck come to South Africa?
1600s. I think it was about that time. It was the age of exploration, right? So they were traveling everywhere trying to find places.
When did they start taking slaves from West Africa?
Probably around the same
1700s?
Time. Probably around the same time. I don't think it was long after they found places that they started moving people around, because they would have already encountered Africa.
Because I'm wondering, like, do you know, like, when I hear more and more stories of Jan van Riebeeck, by the time he died, there was already a lot being built here.
Yeah.
So in a lifetime, for a place that has never been like built on with bricks and cement or whatever they were using, you can achieve a lot in a lifetime. So now I'm wondering if you're saying they saw the opportunity to exploit this much more primitive society.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if discovery of that, because West and North Africa, Egypt, Timbuktu and them, all the way to like Ghana and Nigeria and them, were like pretty advanced civilizations.
I'm not sure if they were advanced civilizations, because remember there's rediscoveries, right? So like a civilization forms and a civilization falls.
Yeah.
And then they almost go back to zero and it starts again. So and there's remnants of that past civilization that exist in the next group. So South Africa, for example, is probably more advanced than a lot of West African countries. Even places like Benin and Benin in particular.
This will be the part where Ellen Zella said, "You see."
But there's the reason for that is because our interaction with the West has been so.
We're one of the last
consistent
countries to be.
Over the last 100 years, we've just been constantly interacting. But those societies were advanced in a different way. I'll give you an example. You watch Black Panther?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Black Panther, in quite early in the movie, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan's character, he's in the museum and he finds all these masks, right? And the lady started explaining, this is from Benin, this piece is from this, and he says, no, it's from Wakanda. So those African masks are very important because they say a lot about the advancement of African societies.
Yeah.
They tell us, like, in a very primitive society, your first sort of thing to do is to eat and be safe. So the base instinct of animals, whatever, is to find shelter.
You start doing art, that means you'll...
Yeah. So the time you get to art, your society is fairly safe enough and the art's pretty advanced. You've learned to manipulate metal, to design, because it's design, right?
Yeah.
You've managed to do a level of design.
Interpret
and replicate. So those societies were a lot more advanced than people realize.
Yeah.
Even in case of how the whole world was at the time, those societies were probably more advanced than lots of the world. It may be even the whole world. So those societies, almost when the Europeans come, it's almost like they encounter a slightly different, or a society that has stopped progressing or has become whatever, comfortable or content in where they were. Let's take the Aboriginals, similar example. So when Captain Cook arrives in Australia and he encounters the Aboriginals, he encounters people that are pretty chilled about the way they're living their life, living on a beach, eating the roots, but they've been doing this.
They've figured out everything there is to figure out there.
Yeah, but they figured out the simplest way to continue their species. It's very primitive. They come with a new way of doing things, and they completely mess up. Till today, Aboriginal way of life is completely destroyed by the arrival of white people or English people or British people in that area, and they can't. They can't, and they don't want to. A lot of them don't want to pick up the pace that these people are living at. Their way of life has preserved them for long.
Yeah. Okay, we're talking about race, and we ended up at continental drift.
But you look it up, Emilio. It happened.
The Mediterranean trade. What I do want to go back and check is the Indian thing, because I tell that story a lot, and maybe I heard it wrong.
I think you heard it wrong, because the movement of Indian people, or the movement of India as a continent was old,
predated human beings.
Predated human beings. But this is an interesting thing. There is evidence, significant evidence, of a trade between Africa and Asia that predates European civilization.
Yeah, I've seen like people showing like ancient, like whether it's hieroglyphs or rock paintings of them, paintings of black people, and these are paintings that date like pre-Europeans doing whatever they did to us.
Yeah. African people would have been the first people in the world, and they've also been like hieroglyphics, as Egyptian. They would have also founded a lot of things, a lot of early technologies.
Yeah.
Just slow down. I think lack of competition, the way Africa's designed, the separation between groups, the Mediterranean area, because it had this ocean and this expanse, it did allow for development and movement, and I think also the race for Africa and the race for the race for India,
and I think maybe
spices really forced everyone to up their game.
Spices changed the world, bruh.
Yeah, forced everyone to up their game.
But the thing is, there's a theory, so I think Africans aren't by nature conquerors. They don't have the desire to go and overtake and
they did
destroy.
Exactly that.
They did.
Yeah, they enslaved the Moors. They enslaved the Spanish.
What's the guy's name? Mensa.
Yeah,
Titi talks about him.
Yeah,
Mansa Mona or whatever.
Something like that. Mensa Mona.
Still stories though.
Well, there's evidence in Spain that the Africans were there
because the monuments and
because they also they left remnants of African culture in Spanish culture. Imagine ingrained as African culture. They definitely were trading across the Arab world of the time and definitely into India. So there's definitely evidence of exploration by African people. The extent to which that exploration involved a form of colonization is maybe where the debate is. So whether they were exploring, for me, it's not a debate. Whether they were colonizing, that's the conversation.
I was this for I don't know to call it generational motivation. So there's this theory that what would happen in Africa as we were moving up the continent and populating the continent from the south. Albinism started occurring, and because I think even at that time we're very spiritual people, very superstitious people, the lighter skinned people would be exiled and thrown away to form their own colonies.
You watch this on YouTube, huh? I watched this.
I watched this years ago. I don't know where. I was still in high school when I saw this thing.
I watched this.
So now you get these colonies of light-skinned people, and like someone will argue that like albinism is a recessive gene.
Yes.
But like
it's a stretch.
For whatever reason, now they are lighter-skinned people, and they're moving.
Do you know how many albino people, people with albinism you'd need to have to create a community? You'd have to have loads.
So now we just exile all these people, and they're moving away, And what tends to happen so now they're avoiding the sun and moving further away from the, what do you call this thing, equator, moving closer to the European places.
Nah, there's a marker in history when blue eyes appear.
And same like blue eyes is also like although there is melanin blue eyes, it's significantly less than someone of brown eyes.
There's a marker when blue eyes appear in history.
You do better in with your light skin in a cold climate.
Yes.
Also, your skin is not good with the sun.
Yeah.
So now, all of this like resentment, generational resentment, has made these people who eventually became white people, has made them motivated enough. They just naturally have the desire to wanna like outdo everyone, and now they're conquering the world with this attitude, like like a white attitude.
Bizarre,
it's bizarre. Yeah, I know. It's a leap.
It's a huge leap.
It's a definite theory. I'm not making like it's fact what I'm saying.
Because it's for me it's too far a leap. Because what are Europeans is also a mixture of a lot of people. Yeah. And there's lots of. Remember the empires that by the time they start invading our areas and our territories and colonizing us, they've already had changing empires. So they had the Greek Empire, they would have had the Ottoman Empire, they would have had the Roman Empire, the Mongol Empire would have stretched onto the borderlines of Europe, and there would have been a lot of intermixing.
Way before empires, like Neanderthal times.
Yeah, but I'm saying there would have been a lot of mixing. So even those people that are white are not necessarily white. They've been cross-pollinated with a lot of other
over
groups.
The years, they pushed the darker skinned people to the outskirts until eventually, like, you'll have become so white that it's a thing now.
It's like the one thing I don't understand why people in Scandinavia are white. Is it climate? Is it genetics? Is it
like people think like
are they Neanderthals? I'm not sure. I can't explain.
People have a misunderstanding of like evolution itself. People think like the environment like makes a trait happen, which is not true. Like mutations happen, and for some reason, one mutation that occurred is benefiting that one thing that developed that mutation. So now that trait starts to go. The environment doesn't influence the mutation. That's not Darwin's theory. The guy who came before Darwin had the theory that like if you go to a cold area, 2 or 3 generations down the line, they will be better suited for the environment.
Yes,
but that is not evolution. That's not Darwin's theory.
Okay, so
we have about 5 minutes left.
Do white people in Africa look darker than white people in Europe? And is that because they have been under the African sun longer? Or is it just that over time they're becoming darker?
There is I forgot the guy's name.
Europe, South African white people go to like Scandinavian countries and they don't think they're white. They think they're Arab or something.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of Afrikaans people now. Yeah. Afrikaans people you can see an Afrikaans person from far. Yeah, and I don't know why that is.
No, I think because they're mixed. I think because
they mix with Khoisan people.
Yeah, they mix with African people. They mix with Zulus and Xhosas. They mix with every.
And they mixed so long ago.
Yeah, they mixed, but there's definitely.
Yeah, that makes
I think they're definitely mixed.
That makes sense.
I just think, like, there's lots of families, even in my family. Today, I got cousins and stuff that are Indian, like through and through Indian.
Yeah.
Their children will be Indian. Their partners will be. There'll be no trace at any point that we had similar ancestors or grandparents or great-grandparents, because
you'll find the evidence in you rather than in them.
And in my children, because they've now got the dominant gene that's makes them look Indian.
Nah, like in your DNA, there'll always be if
There'll
they are
always
mixed
be,
somewhere, yeah,
but
there'll always be.
The combination of the two. So you might have a throwback every now and
It's
then.
like all those colored people that passed the pencil test. We'll never find them again.
Yeah, well, Durban's very different to the rest of South Africa because our mixes are fairly recent. Like we have a lot of colored people in Durban.
I would say Johannesburg as well, but like
Yeah,
Durban
it's
colored
also
people
quite-
are.
Yeah, I think maybe Johannesburg and Durban. Durban in particular, because I was obviously in the context of me living here. You have grandparents that are Indian and grandparents that are Zulu.
Yeah.
I think in the Western Cape they've been colored for a longer
They've-
time.
Yeah, and they've been mixing for a long time. And it was part of the stuff I wanted to talk about, but it's like a whole nother hour.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it
we've
when
already
we come
been here
back.
for an hour.
I think an hour and a half. Okay, that's all we have for today. This podcast, I believe, will be posted in 2 parts. So you've just finished listening to part 2. Thank you for listening. If you've listened this far, I suspect this might be our most listened to podcast, seeing that you guys were anticipating this episode so much. Thank you for listening. Calvin, you want to sign off?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Emilio, on your podcast or on your device. Yeah, I hope you get a bigger SD card so that we don't stop. But congratulations on everything you're doing and with this podcast.
Oy.
And I hope you enjoy your gigs in Durban, all 4 of them.
Yeah, I hope it's fire. Come on out. By the time I post this, I will be out of Durban already.
Cool. See you in Cape Town.
Sharp.